Okay, my name is Genesis Hernandez.
My name is Kassandra, and we are the co-chairs of the Elections Committee, and we are moderating the debate tonight.
Okay. Okay, so welcome to the Wisconsin Student Government Association Executive Board Debate. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight and supporting our candidates. I'd like to thank everyone on the Elections Committee and all of those who have made this debate possible, and the public for taking the time to attend this important event. Before we begin, I'd like to explain the rules and process of the debate. We will start off with 1-minute introductory statements, then Cassie and I will ask questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question, then there will be up to 5 minutes for the public to ask questions, and finally 1 minute for closing statements. We will interrupt any candidate if we believe the candidate is straying from the subject matter or if the candidate has passed their time limit. The candidates shall not be allowed to interrupt one another, and time limits will be strictly enforced. During public comment, if you would like to ask a question, you have 2 options. You can come up to the microphone and state your question, or you can submit your question anonymously on Slido. The code number is U351. At the bottom of your agenda, you can see the code number and the name of the website previously mentioned. Please ask appropriate questions. All questions asked anonymously will be said at our discretion. And then we ask that each person from the public only ask 1 question per candidate, and once everyone gets a chance to ask their question, you will be given a chance to ask 1 additional question. I would also like to remind everyone to please be respectful and please remain civil throughout the debate. If you become a disruption, you will be asked to leave. We're going to begin with Parliamentarian, then with VP of Finance, and then VP of Internal Affairs, and then the President, and finally the VP of Student Relations. Okay, so Cassie.
First, we have Arusha Waheed. She's running for Parliamentarian. Senator Waheed, you have up to 1 minute for the industrial statement.
Hello, my name is Arusha Waheed. I'm currently a senator in SGA, and I've been a senator since the fall semester of 2017. I'm running for Parliamentarian alongside VP Viegas, and I've also been a part of the Biology Club, the Muslim Student Association, and the Accounting Society, and I really think that the leadership skills that I have gotten from being a part of those clubs will really help me while being parliamentarian here in SGA, because I've learned how to work well with others, how to listen to what people have to say, and I think those are really good skills in order to be parliamentarian. And I will be sure to bring that with me when I become the parliamentarian.
Awesome.
First question, what is your leadership style?
My leadership style is that I know how to work in a group of people, and I know that sometimes there can be different individuals who come with their own personalities, and I think that I'm really good at becoming kind of like blending in with people and knowing how to work with them even when there's conflict. So I think that could make me a good leader.
Describe a difficult student situation you have handled.
A difficult student situation I've handled is when I first joined SGA, somebody asked me if I joined SGA, and I was like, yeah, I've joined the Student Government Association, and they were like, oh, I've heard that organization is so serious and so rigid, and no one really wants to be part of that. And I was like, no, I think that they're great. Like, they make me feel like family, and I really feel like I have my place at Western when I'm with my SGA friends and with everyone in SGA, actually. So.
Give a specific example of a policy you conform to which you do not agree, and why.
Is that like in SGA or just like in anything? Okay. A policy in SGA? So I think, wait, let me just think for a second. Okay. So I sometimes do not think that, I do this because I'm in SGA, but I think that sometimes people cannot get in SGA because of their time conflict and because the meetings are at 2 p.m. And I think that has been an issue for a lot of students who have, not 2 p.m., sorry, that was last semester, 11:30. And that has been an issue since some people have classes Friday, some people have work, which is really important. So I think that that's a policy that like people sometimes can't get in, and that's kind of a deal breaker. If you can't make the meetings, you can't really be in it. And a senator, which most people want to be. So I wish that was like not the case, but yeah.
5 minutes for public comment. Just a reminder, we ask each person from the public to ask one question per candidate. And once everyone gets the chance to ask their question, you'll be given the chance to ask an additional question.
How can the student body trust your judgment if you've never sat on the Rules Committee or the Judicial Board?
I look forward to spending a lot of time with the current parliamentarian, McKeithen, and her and I will be working very closely to make sure that I know the rules of my job and know all the responsibilities that come with being the parliamentarian. So I think that despite the fact that I'm not on the Rules Committee, I think that I can still handle this position well through the help of Parliamentarian McKeithen.
Okay, also, if you don't want to go up to the microphone, you can also submit your questions through Slido, and we will ask them up here. So I'll give you guys a second if you want to do that.
And I was just wondering, in regards to the governing documents of the SGA, do you have any particular plans as to what sort of changes you would like, and what sort of slate or position would you be running on, in running for parliamentarian? What would you like to change within the SGA?
I actually don't have anything that I would like to change at this moment, but hopefully when I become the parliamentarian, if I have something to change, I would bring that to the Senate, and I would see if everyone, or to my Rules Committee, and see if they're also on board with it, and that's where I would go from there. That's how I would go from there.
So as the parliamentarian, you can't really be biased toward anyone. So when you make a decision, how can you rule that out from your decision and from your committee decision?
If I was in a situation where I could not be biased in any way, I would have to put my emotions to the side and do what's best for the Senate and its senators, and really know how to make a decision without letting any of my emotions affect it, and being really unbiased, which is important when dealing with government. Okay, well, as parliamentarian, when I become the parliamentarian, I really hope to be a voice for especially the people here at Western who are, typically particularly me. I'm a girl. I'm also Muslim. Usually Muslim girls do not, they're not usually no one ever thinks that, a Muslim girl is going to go in a position of leadership, which I think is really important. And I think that the people who also started the Muslim Student Association, I really give them an applause, because that's a really great thing to do, and it really brings a lot of attention to our community. And that's also what I would like. That's also why I ran for this position, because I think that it's important that I represent my kind. So.
Great, thank you, Arusha. You can sit down.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so up next we have Danny Mann, and he's running for the Vice President of Finance. So if you could just take a seat right here.
Okay, so my name's Danny Men. I was born in Cambodia. I came here in 2006. I was actually very active when I was little until now. I went to DHS. I did ROTC there, so that's where I get a lot of my leadership training. I volunteered a lot during high school, especially at the Escape to the Arts. I spent over at least 1,000 hours there, because I was there every single day during high school. And now I am a sophomore at WestCon. I do ROTC up in Yale, hopefully becoming an Air Force officer once I graduate from here, and studying computer science. So, yeah.
All right, so now you will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. The first question is, how do you plan to better the communication process
So as of right now, the communication between the finance and the clubs are not very good because it's just through email. And some of the students don't really respond to email that well. So I think the best next thing is to actually use personal phone number, because in our signature, we usually use phone number, and I think that even though we could send out an email to someone, students usually don't really check their email, and I think having that platform of reaching the club e-board with their phone number is actually a faster process where it would eliminate wasting 2 or 3 days just waiting for a response back. And especially with finance, everything's about deadline. So if we miss one deadline, then it just trickle down. So I think that would eliminate one of the communication issues.
What skills and strengths do you possess that are specific to carrying the duties for the position of VP of Finance?
VP of Finance is a lot of organization and a lot deal with charts and stuff, and I am really good at that, especially when because as VP of Finance, you're really not interacting a lot, only when you're at the meeting or sending out emails. So most of the time, you are hanging by yourself, listening to music, just filling out charts, making sure that all the numbers are correct. And I think that's what I like to do. Although I am a people person, I do love that alone time where I could focus on getting everything done and making sure that I have, even though I am doing the back work of a whole show, it's still very important, especially giving money to all the clubs so they could do what their agenda plan to do.
What do you consider to be the most challenging part of the position of VP of Finance?
I think the biggest part is making sure that I stick to deadline, answering emails, because I know I talked to Sam, he get over 30 emails a day and that he has to respond to. And that does take a lot and it's very stressful, but I hope to overcome that with practice, with help from Sam, and with help from my whole lead board. But yeah.
And VP of Finance is a full-time job, and it requires a lot of time and dedication. How do you plan to fully commit to the demands of finance?
So as I mentioned before, I do ROTC up in Yale, and it does take a lot of times, but it helped me to manage my time itself. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I would wake up at 4, drive up to Yale, then do physical fitness there, do classes there, do training there, then we'll get back here around 12 o'clock. But that, again, helped me to manage my time because now I could actually plan my schedule accordingly to ROTC itself. And now, if I get finance, I will plan my schedule according to finance. And I know that I do need 10 hours in the office, but when talking to Sam, usually it's more than 10 hours, and I am ready to commit to the amount that the finance committee needs of me.
So you've been on the finance committee for 2 years now, and you've seen 2 vice presidents of finance do their job. I was wondering, how would you like to improve the position from what you're going to experience?
So as of right now, I think finance, we do love to have fun, but I think the biggest thing is that we got to make sure that everyone's reading the minutes, making sure that everything that we do is correct and it's to our standards. And it's not just that, oh, I like this club, so there's no bias. We cannot show any bias because we are dealing with money. We are dealing with denying events if we have to. But I think the biggest part is making sure that everyone in the committee reads the minutes, making sure that our record are correct.
So you've seen 2 vice president of finances, myself and Sam Cournoyer. And can you state one area where they have failed where you would like to change?
Well, with you, Ryan, I really didn't know because I was in SGA for only 1 semester, so I didn't really know what finance was. But with Sam, I think the thing that was not a bad thing, but but I think it's just sending out emails in advance, but then also giving the club a reminder, because I know that some e-board really act on it, where if I get one email, it's like, yes, I'm going to put it in my calendar. But other clubs, you got to push them a little. And we have to face this because every single e-board on campus for clubs are not the same. They have different standards and they have different backgrounds. So, I mean, yeah, it's kind of bad to send that second or third email to remind them, but as a SGA and as the Vice President of Finance, I do care for the club and making sure that the budget are right and that they will have time and making sure that they act at the right time to fill out paperwork so the event would happen.
I feel like you're in the position where you are equipped to handle such a rigorous position like this one on the table.
I mean, if this question asking if I could handle the position of the Vice President of Finance, I think, yes, I can handle it. I mean, I've been faced with many challenges in my life, especially with ROTC, leading other high schooler, leading other college students, so I think I am capable of handling this position, especially with my organization skill and communication skills.
I believe 3 years ago, there was a little bit of a policy change on the SGA side of things as it pertained to budgets, to make things easier on clubs, allowing them to amend their budgets throughout the school year. Over the few years that this policy has been in place, it has resulted in the majority of club events being allocated for via budget amendment throughout the school year. While this is great for clubs being able to have more time to plan and organize things on their end, it has taken away from time for the finance committee to be able to dedicate to, revising the financial resolutions and organizing other things within the organization. Do you have any idea or plans in regards to how you would like to solve this problem?
As Sam mentioned, most clubs would just come in for only one event, where if the event is next month, they would just come in, make an appointment, and then only plan for that event. And that does take a lot of time, and most clubs we see more than 3 times that semester, and it's not a really good idea because now we're taking times away from other clubs when they need to have an urgent meeting. And I do believe that limiting the revision of their budget once a semester or twice a semester will really eliminate that process where people come in 3 or 4 times a semester, and also this would create more time for clubs that never came in before, so they have ample amount of opportunity to request their budget. And yes, I do see that problem, and I will change that once I become Vice President of Finance.
Danny, what's your favorite part about SGA?
It's interacting with all the people. We all came from different background. A lot of us brought different things to the table, and I think that's really cool. Just all the different culture that within SGA, all the different ideas. Yes, sometimes we clash head, but I think that's what brought the strength out from all of us.
Okay, great. And now you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
So the reason why I am running for Vice President of Finance is that I do want to make a change. I do see that some of the finance resolution article need to be changed, and I am going to ask a lot of help from the Senate and from my e-board to help me with this. But all of that, thank you for coming. Have a good night.
President of Internal Affairs. You have 1 minute. You have 2 minutes to introduce yourself. Minute to introduce yourself.
Alrighty. Hello, and thank you for coming, everyone. My name is Sam Cournoyer. I am a rising senior, and I am a double major in audio and music production and business management. I am your current Vice President of Finance for the SGA, and positions that I've held at the school before are the President and Vice President of Opera Club, the Vice President of Audio and Music Production Club. I am a voting member on the Honors Council, which decides the direction for the honors program, and I've simultaneously held 2 jobs and worked with various other organizations on campus. Outside of campus, I've worked at Kent Presents, which is an arts and ideas festival where I organized that and various other community programs. And so through this, I've developed interpersonal skills and also organizational and management skills that I think would make me ideal for your candidate as VP of Internal Affairs.
What are specific goals to help grow SGA?
I would like to continue the community building work that VP Hawley has done this year in terms of growing the SGA as a family within one another, and utilizing us to help one another put on events and organize with other sort of communities on campus in regards to clubs and stuff like that. And I would also like to help in revising and paring down the governing documents of the SGA and also sort of reconcile differences between them so that we don't have any discrepancies in our documentation procedure there.
Why should the students and senators trust you to get the job done?
Throughout my various years in sort of leadership positions, be it, club organization in high school and on to club organization here in college and my work with the SGA, I think that I've shown myself to be a reliable and highly organized individual, as well as, I have very good interpersonal skills, I like to think, in terms of the way that I'm able to communicate with individuals and help organize different groups of people to come together and work on different problems. And so I think that sort of makes me uniquely suited for this role.
What have you accomplished during your time at SGA as the former VP of Finance and the student body to qualify you to the VP of Internal Affairs?
As the Vice President of Finance, I think that I have helped continue sort of the legacy of VP Hawley in terms of, growing the, in terms of responding to clubs in a timely manner and sort of helping to get them on their feet with events and stuff like that. As I mentioned in my question to Senator Menn earlier, I have this year sort of been bogged down mostly with revisions to club budgets. And so my focus has mainly been on responding to emails and sort of organizing clubs' budgets in that way. And so I haven't been able to work on the changes that I would like to the financial resolutions and stuff like that to sort of make things a bit more streamlined. But I am dedicated to communicating well with our next Vice President of Finance in order to make sure that those reconcile with all the other documents and make the process as easy as possible for clubs.
Some may say that you've had poor communication skills with the student body via email. How can those students trust that you'll commit to accurately and precisely and timely communicating with the Senate that the VPIA position currently requires?
I do admit that there have been times where my email response time has gotten a bit slow, and I do apologize sincerely for that. This semester I have taken on 21 credits, and last semester I had 24 credits. On top of that, I am, as I said, the vice president of one club and was president of another club on campus, and I have been very busy with other sort of dedications on campus as well. In terms of the time dedication of Vice President of Finance, the emails received as Vice President of Finance number in the very high tens to hundreds per week. And the Vice President of Internal Affairs tends to, in my experience in talking with Vice President Hawley, deals more in quality of response as opposed to quantity. The Vice President of Finance position involves a lot of repetitive tasks of a single sort of type of email, and it is a very high volume. And I think that I am more uniquely suited to responding to dedicated questions than to a repetitive task in that way.
As VPIA, it requires, I think, a lot of interpersonal skills individually and as a group. And the last two VPIAs have been very well organized, yet they've formed relationships with many on the Senate. How would you describe the relationships you built individually and collectively as a senator in the last 2 years?
I like to think of myself as a relationship builder and as a community builder. Sort of since high school, I have been working in various different organizations and with different groups, and one of the key pieces that I have found to working with those groups is building relationships with individuals, be it senators here and the ways that I've grown to be great friends with senators since being on the Senate, and ways that I have grown to get to know certain clubs and individuals in administration better. But throughout my entire time being in a leadership position, I have prioritized relationships and getting to know individuals, I think, above all else. And I think that my current connections to administration and knowledge of the process and personalities there also sort of put me in a uniquely good position for VPIA. I've used the word uniquely far too many times. Additionally, including sort of my current work with the provost on the schedule changes for next year.
My question to you is, how do you plan to just really make sure that you're still committing your time to SGA, especially as VP of Internal Affairs, it's very important that you are a presence in the office even when you aren't in the office. So I would like to know how you plan to do that job.
Sort of my intention to eventually run for VPIA this year, I have sort of overloaded on credits for this current school year, which leaves me in the position of only having to take 18 credits each semester next year, which, though that may sound high, is the lowest amount of credits I've ever had to take since being here. And so that should reduce my time dedication to classes significantly and open up a lot more time to dedicate to SGA. Because as the Vice President of Internal Affairs, I would, even though as finance I do dedicate a lot of extra hours, they tend to be dedicated at times when other people aren't there and at times when I can work individually on my work. And so I would like to, with my lighter class schedule next year, schedule more of my time to be during the day, during office times when I can sort of be there and be around senators and interacting and getting to know, what they would like to change and see in Senate. I do believe that the SGA does help individuals succeed on and off campus. We have a lot of connections to be it administration or sort of local community individuals, and the connections built through SGA, as well as the reputation of individuals for working on Senate and in a collaborative group in that sense, improves people's positions going forward, and I think really empowers them to have a better chance at getting jobs or going out and working with different individuals on volunteer organizations and stuff like that later in life. All right, so in closing, I would like to say that through all the things I've done, be it on campus or off campus, I think I've developed a plethora of interpersonal skills that can help me organize such a large group like the Senate, be that helping the Vice President of Student Relations running events or helping the Vice President of Finance in deciding what to do with governing documents or working with the Parliamentarian on that same issue. Ultimately, what I would like to do in this next year as sort of my biggest item of work would be to streamline our governing documents and close any of those loopholes and discrepancies between documents. When you are an organization that has multiple different governing documents, all with multiple articles each, you tend to have, be it typos or sort of discrepancies between different sections. I would like to make sure that those are all taken care of, as well as trimmed down so that everything is as easily understandable as possible. And to go with that, I would also like to work on developing a sort of manual or a user's guide to how to navigate the Constitution, bylaws, and financial resolutions. And so ultimately, I look forward to working closely with all of my e-board members next year, and I can't wait to get started. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Okay, next we have Carlos dos Santos running for president. Okay, Carlos, you have 1 minute for your introductory statement.
I'm currently a junior here at Western Connecticut State University, a psychology major, but also pre-med. I've been involved in a number of leadership positions at the university, everything from e-board positions in clubs all the way to more broad leadership positions such as being an orientation leader. I'd also like to thank all of you for coming out right now. It does mean a lot to me that you all take your education and the extracurricular activities that go on campus very seriously, and attending events such as this is a great way to show that, so thank you. I think an SGA president should be able to lead by example, in the sense that you should put in the work and also expect those who are essentially in Senate and the rest of your e-board member to follow your example as a leader, but also be able to delegate responsibilities to those around you when you have to. So not be able to not take on too much at once and essentially end up dropping the ball. So being able to delegate really well, manage your time well, and work with those around you.
How do you plan on voicing student concerns to the administration in a way that will lead to a productive outcome?
I'd like to think I have a lot of pretty good connections within the administration because of my work as president this year, but also having worked in the Office of Institutional Advancement, which is in the administrative building across the street from here. So I've been able to take in student concerns both personally and via email this year, and will continue to do so, and relay them to the appropriate parties just to make sure that as many of those concerns are heard as possible.
What are the main issues you believe students are facing, and what is your plan to help resolve these issues?
I think a lot of the issues that happened is students don't know exactly who to go to, who the appropriate person to go to is when wanting to voice their opinions. And that happens all the way from minor things such as day-to-day issues at Western all the way to major issues like the class scheduling change that we just had this semester. So just making sure that students know that the SGA is the appropriate party to go to and knowing that the senators are the ones who they voice their opinions to. So we do have a very diverse community at WestCon. I think that's actually one of the things that makes us such a great university. So just making sure that every student knows, no matter their race, their age, their student status, whether it be part-time or full-time, their opinions still matter. We are the Student Government Association. We're here to represent every student independent of their background. So making sure that they know that they can come to us, voice their opinions, and those opinions will be taken as seriously as possible.
So as president, you saw a huge culture shift in the SGA from the previous years. How will you continue this next year as president and ensure the organization will remain efficient and effective?
We've had to kind of adapt and learn on the go, both myself and VP Hawley. So just making sure that we maintain that communication between the Senate and the Executive Board so that things do run smoothly, as they have for the majority of the times during this past academic year. So just ensuring that that continues to happen next year as well.
Why has your administration chosen to work with the administration as opposed to fight what is an abridgment of our rights?
We were unfortunately not given a voice. The change was unilaterally made by the provost of our university, which is unfortunate because that's one of the things that I fought to change, to make sure that we do have that communication between ourselves and the administration. But like I said, we were not given a voice. So
and in a situation like that, you represent and you fight.
The thing is, though, it's one of the things that we were not able to fight. We sometimes have to realize that it's an unwinnable battle and have to try to adapt and make sure that we still look out for the students' interests, which was what happened when I appointed VP Cournoyer to be the one to stay in communication with the provost and make sure that every student still has all of their concerns heard and does not have their ability to graduate on time affected.
I know you're part of many organizations on campus, so how do you handle conflict between those organizations?
SGA is and always has been my priority. So when there are certain conflicts of interest or anything that does come, and they do happen, I try to maintain myself as professional as possible, keep my biases out of it. But if I do realize that there is even the possibility that I might be accused of being biased towards certain organizations, as my e-board can attest, I try to delegate the decision to the entire e-board and after that the entire Senate and try not to make unilateral decisions on it. So the best course of action is just to make sure that the students know that we're all here with the same goal in mind. We're here to represent student interests. We're here to be as objective as possible with every issue that arises. So while there has been a certain divide that's happened in the past few weeks and months, as long as we are all on the same page and realize that we're here to benefit the student as good of an experience here as possible, that is the goal. So just making sure that everybody knows that personal opinions aside, the important thing is that we're representing the students.
Can you talk about how you improved SGA as the president and what you plan on doing in the future to continue to strengthen what you've done in the last year?
So just communication. The biggest thing that I stressed to my e-board before the actual year started was that as long as we keep an open line of communication between all of us, bits of that would essentially trickle down to the entire Senate. So just maintaining that open line of communication and having everybody know that their opinions count. Just because I hold a certain title, that doesn't entitle me to make unilateral decisions. We're all here with the same goals in mind, so just working together and making sure everybody has their opinions heard.
What do you consider to be like your greatest accomplishments as president? And second, how do you see yourself like moving past those? Like if you've done so many great things, what would you have foreseen for the future as for your next year as president?
My greatest accomplishment that I'd like to think at least is bridging the gap between SGA and some of the larger organizations on campus. Throughout this past academic year, we've worked closer with organizations such as PAC, such as Greek Life, such as IRHA, a lot more so than we've done in the past. So just bridging that gap and just making sure everybody's on the same page and knows that we're all here for the same thing. In regards to what I think I can continue to do, it's just bridging that gap even more, making sure that all the students know that their opinions will be heard, and continue to work with the administration to make sure that students' voices are heard. throughout the remainder of my term. When it comes to the schedule change, the first thing I plan on doing is tomorrow we actually do have a few meetings with the president of all of the CSUs, Mark Ojakian. So speaking to him, because obviously our concerns were not heard by the administration the first time around. So the next logical step is essentially go to the next person up, which is President Ojakian. And besides that, just making sure that since this change is already in place, if there is no way to rescind it, just keep working with the provost to make sure that every student that comes here is able to graduate in 4 years if that's their plan, making sure that nobody is affected negatively by this change, especially the students that are here right now. Mm-hmm. Thank you for coming out. I urge all of you to not only vote in the SGA elections if you're a student here, but also reach out to all of your friends and tell them the importance of voting as well. We are all student elected representatives, and we're here to serve you, the students of Western Connecticut State University. So just tell them essentially, vote, make sure your voices are heard. And yeah, thank you guys, and have a great night.
Lastly, we have our 3 candidates running for Vice President of Student Relations. Before the debate, the consensus drew lots to decide the order of the opening statements. The first one is Bharbara Viegas. And then it's Cortez. And then is Veray.
So I'm Barbara. I'm a junior and I'm a commuter. I'm the current Vice President of Student Relations for the Student Government Association, and I'm running alongside Arusha Waheed. Basically what Arusha and I are passionate about are about encouraging the participation of immigrant and female students on campus, because our campus is made up of mostly majority female students and minority students, and we believe that they should be represented accurately in positions of leadership. Clubs that I've been a part of during my time at Western have been the Cournoyer Honors Program. I was the treasurer of the Alpha Phi Sigma Criminal Justice Society. I'm the president of WestCon Without Borders. I'm also the treasurer, or I was the treasurer of the Justice and Law Society. I'm the secretary of the debate team, and I'm also a participant in the moot court group on campus. Basically, I have a lot of experience in being in leadership roles, and as well as positions where I advocate for students. I'm passionate, I'm motivated, and I have a lot of experience, and that's why you should vote Viegas.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cortez. I'm a junior right now in the social work department. Currently, I am the president of the Inter-Residence Hall Association. I work as a manager for the Information Technology and Innovation team. I have been a former RA of Fairfield Hall. I was the National Communications Coordinator for IRHA at one point as well, working with other universities and learning how to do student outreach and putting on programming for students who live on campus and who come to campus. I've been a very active member since day one. I love this school, and Oscar on outreach.
My name's Veray. I'm a junior here in the social work department. I've been in SGA for about a semester or so. This is my second semester. I'm actually in SGA at Western. I've been in SGA in other colleges. I graduated from 2 community colleges, and I entered Western, and I've just continued my passion in helping and advocating for students and their needs, especially those who go unseen. I've won an essay contest where I got to shadow the Secretary of the State. For those of you who are interested in reading that essay, it's downstairs at one of the tables. One of the things that I quoted in my essay is that I would just like to empower the powerless. So please vote SNO. It's not a position, it's a passion.
What is your leadership style, and how will it benefit you if you are elected VP SR?
I think my leadership style, in short, is very direct. For those of you who do know me, I've been working on campus for every single day that I've been here. And my very first passion is getting to know every student. I'm very easygoing and very outgoing. I meet a lot of students on a day-to-day, and SGA has opened up a lot of doors for me to do that. I think the most important thing about being a leader is using your constituents and using your peers and using the people around you and in the environment that you're in, because those are the people that give you the best influence, the best knowledge to do your job right, especially in the Vice President of Student Relations position. You are here to relate to the students and do what you need to do for them. And the only way you can ever do that is by going out there every day, introducing yourself, exposing yourself to new ideas and new people. And I think with my leadership style, I've always been doing that, and I still continue to do it. And I think it's a huge passion and ambition of mine to make sure that everyone's heard and to not discriminate against who I listen to.
For one, I have great time management skills. So that's something that I've been able to apply to my leadership, is being able to sort out the different things that I do on this campus, from work and also student government, from also serving just as a resource to students with no organization background whatsoever, but just being a resource to them. What I can say about my leadership style is that it can come off in ways that are not necessarily what they are, meaning that I am very passionate about what I do, and some people misconstrue my passion for other things. What I can say is that I have never tried to, or will I try to, hurt the students or the student body.
My leadership style, I like to think of as like this video that I play for everyone at like training, the be the last to speak kind of leader, because I feel like I value the opinion of, in this scenario, like the senators and the students a lot. So sorry, I wasn't paying attention to that. Anyway, my leadership style is more of like when I start a conversation. So if you're in like my SR committee, you can totally probably advocate for this, that before I make any decision, I go through everyone and make sure everyone's all right with it. We talk about everything, and then I listen to what everyone has to say, and then we make a decision together, because I think that that's really important. So that's my leadership style. I take into account everything that everyone has to say before making a decision, because I also don't like to make executive decisions, because, you know, everyone should have their own opinion and be able to voice that and have it considered when a decision is being made, especially when in this position we deal with like events and student outreach and that kind of thing, and that's really important, I think, for the VPSR to consider everyone's opinions, including the students.
How will you work to make SGA on campus and more inclusive and promote involvement among the student body?
I think making SGA, kind of piggybacking off of what Arusha had mentioned, not being accessible for all can really, really be an issue. And also just making what we do public, you know, letting clubs and organizations know that you can request the minutes to see what we spoke about in a Senate meeting, or offering clubs to come and sit in a Senate meeting, or also going out and just advocating on different days aside from Western Wednesday, getting our name out there. In addition to that, I also believe that if we build a bridge between SGA, which our student leaders were looked at, and also the student body, we would have more of a communication level than what we have right now. I do think that the student leaders kind of speak for the entire student body, and that's a huge transition I would like to see if I take office.
So last year, a big thing that our campaign was trying to do when I was running for VPSR last year was that we were trying to get, like Carlos did, he talked about how he got like a lot of like Greek life involved in the Core 4 and PAC and everything. And that's something that I think is really important, to have a solid relationship with the Core 4. But I think for this, in my second year, I would kind of focus more on maybe like co-hosting events with like the smaller clubs on campus, the clubs that aren't like the big Core 4, because that will build relationships with those individuals. And if you're part of a club, then you have like friends that are part of that club, and then you're part of other clubs, and you can like talk about like different things that's going on. When you build a relationship with one specific club, that's a whole group of people that have other connections, and then they can pass on the word that SGA is awesome and that they should work with us. So yeah, I think is a really easy way to promote connections within the student body.
Yeah, I think the most pertinent issue on that is showing your face. I think a lot of what SGA sometimes have struggles with is communicating that they're an SGA and showing that they're an SGA. I spend a lot of time on campus, and I'm moving around at all times. I live on campus. So I'm constantly meeting new people and letting them know who I am, who I represent, and what I plan to do. So I think going off of what our current VPSR Viegas just said is that it's really important to bridge these gaps with clubs, not just of the core 5 organizations, but all the clubs. And that's something that I've already been actively doing, is going to the meeting of the smaller clubs and letting them know that there are tools and resources available to them, that there's someone here who will listen to them and wants to work with them to be more involved and represent students of specific interests and other organizations. And I think that's something the VPSR should focus on, is really getting to know as many organizations and as many student leaders as possible, because those student leaders are elected representatives of our students. So they're, as much as there is an important part of working with students, student leaders aren't just put in positions, they're elected. People vote for these people into their positions. So working with both, putting them together like some sort of machine, a cog, a moving, living, breathing campus that we have with plenty of people, you need to look at both ends. And I think that I excel in working with both students and student leaders.
If you've ever had a personal conflict with an individual or a situation, how were you able to accomplish your objective and get past it?
If there ever comes a time when there's a conflict with me personally, if that's the question, right, personally, I think the best course of action is to really just promote communication. Like if an individual has if they have an issue with something that I'm doing or my executive board is doing, it's really important to go out and speak to them and ask what's going on, let's talk about it, let's start a conversation so that maybe we can get on the same page and fix the conflict or reach a happy medium or something like that. In the case that that's not possible because communication is cut off or there's just too much tension, the VPIA position is meant for that. The current VPIA has worked with senators and that kind of thing to try to fix conflict, because obviously in a group of leaders there's going to be some conflict. And in that scenario, they can speak to the VPIA, which is in charge of the internal affairs of the Senate. And if there's an issue with me personally, that they don't want to speak to me, they can always talk to Sam or Ryan or whoever is the VPIA, and that'll be resolved that way, so that there could be a moderator or something, so eventually something can be resolved, because it's really important that we're all on the same page and there's no conflict with individuals in a community in the Senate.
In the past 2 years, actually, that I've been on campus, I have had a lot of difficulty working with some administration and some staff members. And I think the most important part that I took away is that you need 2 key aspects of being able to work with someone that is, kind of butting heads with you, is to make sure that that you're passionate, that you're doing what you love to do. And then the second part is to just, again, do your best to communicate, keeping those channels of communication open and truthful. Because if you can't work with someone on a truthful level and being honest and working through struggles together and setbacks, then you're only going to either become stagnant or move backwards. And I think the most important part of that is, again, loving what you do. Because if you don't love what you do, if you don't go in every day with a smile and with the ambition and the passion and the excitement for what you're doing, then it's going to be difficult. And I think that's something that I truly embody when anyone meets me or sees me walking down the hallway. I love being at this school, and I love working through problems and helping people overcome their problems.
Prior to coming to Western at Gateway, one thing we wanted to do that was not done before in student government was create a spring fling. Spring Fling that we created was basically for faculty and staff to get to bond together, because faculty really didn't get to interact with the students, being that we're really all commuters. There's nowhere for anyone to go after you go home. There were high concerns with the president as well as the deans as far as having music during class times. There was concerns as far as having a grill outside. There were concerns with everything that we didn't even think concerns would be brought about. Instead of backing down from the situation or just giving in, we actually just sat down with faculty and we kind of went through all of our issues and came to common grounds on everything, as far as where the level of music would be, what hours we would serve food, how many students we would allow in at, and if it got over capacity at once. Multiple different things we discussed so that this event could be very successful. And honestly, the event has been very successful, and I was actually invited to come back this semester for their second spring fling and receive an award.
Having been VPSR this academic year, what do you see the role of VP of Student Relationship being, and why should you be reelected?
What I see the role of VPSR being is really, because basically, like when Izzy used to be VPSR, he would always say that he was like the true face of SGA. Like as much as like the president is like the president, he was like kind of like Oscar said as well. Like you're out there, you're at the events, you have to. A lot of people see you as like the face, and I think that that's really important. And student outreach and speaking to students and getting out there and really like advocating and like just starting the conversation and getting students involved is the really big part of being VPSR. And I think I've done that with Fall Bash and SGA Day. You always see like the live videos going and like everything. It's like very high energy and inclusive of all people. And I think that's one of the most important things. And I see that being a really big platform for my second year, is that, like just continuing that, like in terms of big events, but also in terms of like student outreach, like I've been doing with town halls and that kind of thing. Because just as much as it's important to have a great time at an event, it's really important to get down to the issues, like the town halls that we've had. So I think those are two important things.
You recently joined SGA this semester. Why do you believe you are qualified to be the next VPSR?
Well, I may have joined the SGA in the past semester, but again, as I had mentioned before, I'm the president of one of the core 5 organizations, that being IRHA. And similar to how SGA kind of functions, we have several committees. We have several, upwards of 25 committee members, general council members is what we call them. And I have to work with 6 hall councils for the 6 residence halls that we have. So outreach is not something that is new to me. Although this is in a different organization, it's the same job. It's something that I've been good at, and I have revamped the Inter-Residence Hall Association. For those of you who don't know, when we worked together with PAC during the Winter Wonderland, our staple program for that co-sponsorship is Stuff-A-Moose, and with me and my current executive board, we doubled the numbers of the attendees. We went anywhere from 250 to a little over 400. And I think that has to do with me planning months ahead because of how passionate I was about doing well for this school and showing people that we care. And that's something that I bring to the table to every single job that I have. I work for IT&I actually, and I try to deal with every problem, even if it's not in my own lab. There's about like 7-9 labs on both campuses combined, and I chase every problem with enthusiasm and passion and trying to help others and trying to help my co-managers and trying to help my employees, which I have 60 plus of them on top of my own schedule. So it's something that is not new to me. These positions, these responsibilities, what I do here on campus won't be new. It's something that I've been practicing for 3 years in a row at this college. I have experience with these students, with these administrators, and with these faculty members. I have relationships not only with students, but faculty members from all over the campus, whether it be with facility scheduling, promotion, housing, CSI. I have moved across all facets of WestCon, and I think that huge knowledge base that I have of every single corner of this school will definitely help me with being the Vice President of Student Relations.
How do you intend to use your position to make SGA more efficient?
I would want to see what the Senate wants. And I think that is the best way to go about it. I think that we need to have an open discussion with our senators, whether it's official or unofficially, to meet with everyone and see their wants, needs, and desires for the Senate. However, for myself, I do feel that one thing we need to work on is the governing documents. But for VPSR, the main focus of the position is with the clubs and club functioning. And if I had to sit and work with SGA to see what they could do to improve, I would want to have the senators' voice into that.
As you are the voice of the students, what issues do you believe the students are facing, and how do
My opinion on that is that I feel as though there is a imbalance in who and what organizations are represented and contacted. Something that I had mentioned to the Black Student Union when I asked for their sponsorship, it was that I didn't really have an understanding as to why, with such a huge event that they have on campus, they weren't on our WestFest committee. I think for a long time, the 3 years that I've been here, they have been such a player in the game. They put in a phenomenal event during that week, and I think sometimes because we favor the core five, that some of those organizations are kind of put to the side, and there are organizations under us that do just as phenomenal of a job with less people sometimes and less resources. And I think they need to be appreciated. And I think that is a problem that I have with that, because I think every organization that puts on an event and really attempts to connect the school should be appreciated, because as we all know, all of us on SGA, it takes a lot of time and effort, and sometimes it can wear and tear on us in our personal lives. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge those other organizations, even down to the smallest and newest organizations, because we're all students. We're students first. We come here to graduate and go on to our lives, and this is something that we do on the side because we love what we do. And if we're kind of ignoring some people and their passions, I think that we're doing a disjustice to some of our students. And I think as VPSR, that is their mantle of responsibilities, to make sure that every organization, every student leader is being represented fairly and equally.
One of my huge passions here was taking on the Student Philanthropy Committee because of the needs of students with dropping out of school because they owe less than $500. Within the next couple of weeks, we'll have our fund finalized so that we can start raising money, and our fund that will be housed at IA. And the Philanthropy Committee will be also in charge of allocating to the different needs that will come up for students. If we start this fund now, within years to come, we could possibly have tens of thousands of dollars in this fund that can really help students that are in need and dropping out of college because they owe less than $500. In addition to that, I do believe club functioning is something that we need to immediately start working on. And if I was elected in this position, that's something I would begin working on within the summer. Guiding clubs is really such an essential thing on this campus that doesn't get the light it needs. We send a training to them. We send things electronically, where you've heard several times, not all students are checking their emails. And then clubs will fall in compliance, or they won't have the rights of other clubs just because of miscommunications. I think that we can empower our clubs to do more if we have different routes for them to do things, not just email, in person, forms in the office for them to pick up and fill out, meeting with the VPSR, meeting with a senator. And I think utilizing all of my senators, the skills in Senate, would help the position of VPSR as well as the students in the student body.
In any issue that we're facing, really, I think a big, the aspect that you have to get is the student voice. You have to know what your students are thinking, kind of like the question that was directed at the president earlier about the schedule change. We have to have a town hall about that. We have to have a town hall about we have to hear the voices. We have to hear the voices of the students, and we have to get out there and ask them questions and make sure that everyone is represented in the conversation. Kind of like I said before, with co-hosting events and that kind of thing, involving clubs in SGA-sponsored things. It's just really about creating the connection so that everyone is heard, and no question is too big or too small, or anything is irrelevant. Everyone should have a voice, and in that way, it'll just all work out, I think.
My name is Sam Cournoyer, and I just wanted to ask, in this past year, we have, it was decided that we would abolish the executive council due to the lack of participation by clubs. So for those who don't know, Hall Council was a, I believe, monthly meeting of all of the e-boards from every club. One problem that had is that we didn't have very good attendance, and so very few clubs ended up coming, and that was the reason for the removal of this meeting every month. This year, it has sort of moved towards email communication, and I think that that has been similarly, effective as the executive councils were. So I just want to ask the three of you, starting with current VPSR Viegas, what you would like to try next year to sort of replace this direct line of communication with students, be it through interpersonal interaction, via different electronic communication, stuff like that.
So the reason that we decided to get rid of executive council was because even Izzy himself before used to say that he would cancel a lot of the meetings, because there would be like either lack of participation or there weren't many topics to talk about. And I think the really big thing that used to happen in those meetings that I've kind of transitioned into the emails that I've been sending out to clubs and that kind of form of communication that, as you said, is equally as effective as trying to find a time for all meetings to come. I mean, all executive board members or like one member from a club or something to come together and speak about, is that it's directly, like, it's more, obviously more efficient. I think that I've already replaced it with a better one. Which is the emails. I think that, as I was saying before, now I remember, one of the big things that you used to do during those meetings was that if clubs had events going on campus, they would like, kind of like how SGA does it in open session, is that you stand up if you're like a representative of a different club, and then you just say like, oh, we're having this event today or this event tomorrow, whatever. And I think that's a really big thing that I might focus on, is that if clubs have different events going on campus, they should send it to me, like, oh, like this is what I have going on, let's try to publicize it, that kind of thing, kind of how Birta sends like a mass email to all the students. They could send me or whoever, me, the emails about like their events and everything, and I'll send it out to the other executive board members so that it could be passed on to their student organizations so that all of their students can know. Because obviously we have a lot of clubs and a lot of members for those clubs.
I think the current form of communication, I feel personally, I think could be improved based on the person who is in the position. For example, I think that I spend a lot of time meticulously planning out my schedule so I can handle the workload that I have. A lot of people in the SGA office know that I do a lot, and then I find myself having nothing to do because I have planned in such a way that I have this extra time, and I have an ample amount of time to get the things that I need done. And I think using that skill that I've built in the past 2 years, I want to return to having executive council. I feel as though it's super important, back on what I was saying before, is that you know who the VPSR is. Because then you at least have someone to get angry at. You have someone to work with. You have someone to complain about, as opposed to not knowing who they are, or as opposed to just having an email. I think it's super important that using that alleyway as a channel for student organizations to grow in an area. And I think based off of my lucky schedule next year, I'm only going to be having classes 2 days out of the week. And so that being said, I'll have 3 days out of the week to be able to use that and have more than just one executive council. So I would split it in half, like, oh, if you can make this time, try to make it this time. If you can't make it this time, I have another option for you. It's just really working with the schedules of other student organizations. And it's something that I am passionate about, is making sure that everyone has that chance. And I think, especially right now with our advisement coming up, I'm going to, again, meticulously plan out so that I can meet with as many people as possible, as often as possible. Because then, again, I think having that line, that face, is just as important as sending out an email and making a phone call. I think once you put them all together, you can do wonders. As if you have all forms of communication working together, you're going to do the best you possibly can. And I absolutely think the email route is a phenomenal way to do it. And I definitely have skills in that area. I have to answer emails for IT&I daily. And I think that's something that when I put together with my outgoingness and not being afraid to meet new people, we can really get that new executive council put together and, revamped, and really get people trying to come to at least one of them.
For me, I would like to continue them. However, it is definitely true that students can't meet everything and it is hard to get them to meet at the same time. So one thing that I have found very essential in groups and in conferences is utilizing technology. I think it would be awesome to start meeting in rooms where is also the conference call hooked up, where we can FaceTime in or call in, using all the resources that we have at once, so that way if there's a student on Westside that can't make the Midtown meeting, but if they come, they'll be too late to class because they have to get back to Westside. Those certain circumstances, you know what, stay at Westside, call into the group, call into the meeting. I think if we start using the technology that we have on the campus, we can make being in clubs more accessible for also commuters. It definitely hurt me to hear in the town halls that there were students who have leadership skills, but they just can't display them because they're working. They're doing other things. They can't dedicate it to school. So I think making it more universal for all, not just residents, would also increase our level of commuters that we have in executive boards, because we can say, look, you don't have to be present here. We can work with you.
So some may say that you had a hard time transitioning to your job because there were so many different aspects that you were really never told of. If you were to lose, how could you change this process for the incoming VPSR?
Easy solution is just to vote for me, so that, there's no problem. Just kidding. So obviously when I became VPSR, I didn't sign. I made an oath to do everything in the best interest of the SGA. And I was so lucky. I mean, yes, there was a lot of things that I didn't know at the time in the beginning, about VPSR, because there's frankly so much that you just can't transition. So Izzy did a great job, but of course there was some holes. But honestly, I made an oath. And I'm not gonna just be petty and not transition the next person. Everyone's a great leader on even they're my competitors or whatever, but we're all very great leaders, and I haven't broken the oath since I've been in office, and I'm not planning on doing that. So if for some reason I don't win, then I will transition effectively to the best of my ability.
If one of your events or grand plan for the semester failed, how would you be able to bounce back?
I have quite the example for you. So homecoming, I actually had the IRHA Olympics. We had a turnout of 0. It was a crushing defeat. I had a new general counsel and a new e-board, really excited to do something huge and get really excited. And me being excitable as I am, I was just as excited, and it was really a crushing blow. But I think I've dealt with failure I think everyone's dealt with failure their entire lives. And I think something that I excel at is being able to bounce back. In that parking lot on the rugby field, I gathered everyone around, and in the old fashioned, I stood up on something and I said, listen guys, not every single thing you're gonna do, you're going to be good at. You're not always going to succeed. It's not always gonna go as planned. It's not always gonna be this amazing turnout that you expected, but that's a part of life. That's a part of being a student. That's a part of being a person, is failing. And I also told them that we'll get them next time. We just need to strap up our boots, plan better, advertise better, and honestly, let's just have a snack. Because I think sometimes we get way too serious about being in these student leadership positions, and I think it's just as important to remember we're human. And that's an aspect that we all have to speak to sometimes, especially in the VPSR position, is remembering that we're just students and we're doing our best, and eventually the sun will come out.
So Veray, as chair of the Student Philanthropy Committee, you failed to raise money for the student scholarships for the entire fall 2017 semester, and you continue to raise money for causes that do not directly impact the student body. For example, the Change for Change coin drive to raise money for the victims of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. How can the student body trust that you will stick to your role as Vice President of Student Relations rather than trek off in other endeavors that are outside your job description?
The initial reason Change for Change developed. And I do also want to note that the VPIA and president both knew about this before a flyer even went on the wall and did not have this to say. But in addition to that, answering your question now, The Student Help and Students Fund, we're actually going to vote on it to allocate it to the Students Fund that we're going to create. We got the name from Juan at our last meeting. We're going to name it Students First, and that's where it's going to be in the IA. And we're actually going to vote to allocate the funds from the Change for Change to that fund. So your question's actually kind of incorrect, because that's something that we're actually working on. One thing that I can say is, with Minorities in Medicine, planning the humanitarian trip to Puerto Rico is what led to us saying we can focus more on the students' needs. I think that we can all vote to say, regardless of being students, we still have empathy, we still have feelings, and there was a huge thing that occurred in the beginning of the semester that I felt we could act on as students, and that's what we did. As the needs changed for not only the country, but the needs for our students, that's how I adapted to say, okay, we can allocate the money from there to here, we'll have a vote.
In the beginning of your term, there was talk of you not being approachable as a vice president. How did you come back from that, and what could you do to improve your approachability if you were reelected?
When this came up last semester, it was kind of, it was surprising to me because, I was brand new, and obviously in a new position, you have a little bit of trouble adapting to everything. And I always believed that I was like easygoing and approachable and everything, but to some I might have like a little bit of a strong personality, which is fine. But to go off of like your question and kind of what I said before, I'll continue to improve through like communication and interaction, but if I'm unapproachable, then that's something that they have to work out with the VPIA, and that just like it was resolved before, and I haven't heard any complaints since, it'll be resolved again, and it's not an issue, and I don't believe it to be a current issue, because before it came up once and it was resolved, and I kind of let down my walls a little bit, had a conversation, was able to be more open, and that's something that I've worked on a lot, especially in my meetings, where instead of me just doing everything and then just telling them what I did, I would kind of open up the floor, write it all down the agenda, and say, this is what I'm doing, this is what you guys are doing, let's just have an open conversation and make it more fluent and approachable and nice. So I don't think it's an issue anymore, but if it will be, then I'm glad to fix it like I did before.
Conflict is going to be everywhere, and I think that if you're afraid of conflict, you won't grow, because you only learn when you fail. There are some lessons in success, but more valuable lessons are when you fail. I do believe that it is going to be an experience working on the e-board with multiple different personalities and opinions, but I do feel it is just really essential to put that on the table first, to let everyone know your culture, where you come from, your background, so they could possibly understand you more in your actions versus misinterpreting them. So I think that is essential. I do know that as I got to know certain individuals, I saw past some of the behaviors they displayed. And I think that if that opportunity was given to me, maybe that could be done as well. But as far as myself, I would love to get to know everyone on the e-board individually more by their culture. I do believe it's very, very vital to hear student opinions. So if we could get that up and running, I don't know if we have to partner with IT or what exactly it is that we have to ask her saying, yeah, so request IT, okay, that's simple. If it's that needs to be done, I think it's pretty vital, because there's no real accurate way to monitor what students are saying. I can say for myself, this past semester as well as last semester, when I would get a complaint regarding students, I would say, here, can you write your student ID on this piece of paper? And I remember at one point speaking with our VPIA Hawley about possibly coming up with a survey where students could fill out if they were upset about something, and having these options to just get their voice out. Being that I was suggesting that without the knowledge of the email we had, I basically said, okay, if we can get our email going, we can hear what students have to say. So I appreciate your point, and I think it's very valid.
I worked endlessly trying to get the IRHA email back up and running, and I succeeded in doing that. And I think you bring up a really important point, is that once you had that email running up, it's just a very big first step. The next comes advertising it, and currently a plan that I'm doing now that I do actually plan on doing with the VPSR position if I'm elected is to advertise that email. Just leaving a flyer or a piece of paper that says, don't like something that's going on campus, email this, or love something about the campus, email this. I I think the most important thing about having an email like that and having people who can't always make to committee meetings and to the Senate, it's just giving them a chance to know that there's this way you can say something, because this is a huge commuter school, and I think that could be easily addressed with something as small as that. Like I was mentioning before, I just got an IRJ email back up, and for those of you who live on campus, you got kind of a taste of the very first use of that email. For anyone who lives on campus, an email was just sent out from FE Mass, who works in the housing office, that you can elect people who live on campus for boards, and it's being sent to that very email. The email that I got up and running all by myself. It took forever. That is just one step. Using the administration, using your faculty, using students, and just really using all the components of the school to really get something like that up and running. It's very small, but that really small component, that little screw can, keep a well-oiled machine going. And I think that is something that I've experienced in handling.
I think the way that I would work with that is to work directly, obviously, with the VPIA to, look through those emails, see what our issues are. And I can't push this enough, I always push it, is that we should have town halls about it. And so if someone is coming to us with an issue, unless it's a specific issue, in that case, we should address their specific email, maybe have a conversation, speak to them in person, whatever. But just to go through that email and because it's been down for a while, there's probably a lot of emails in there. Maybe set up a little task force or something to try to get through everything. And obviously publicizing it is a great idea. I'm thinking probably during our events, any SGA sponsored events or some of the bigger events that we have, like Clubs Carnival and Fall Bash and SGA Days and that kind of thing, is to really push that and be like, hey, this is funded by SGA. If you have an issue or you want to say thanks for doing this or anything, you can really just reply to this email and that kind of thing. So publicizing it and really going through all the backlash or back stuff. I don't even know, the lots of emails that are in there to work with VPA.
I've enjoyed working with you for the last year, but I want to know, as VPSR, what was the most difficult part of the job, and how have you overcome that in the last year to be better than you were in September?
First of all, thank you. Second of all, that's a tough question. So let me think. The most difficult part, the most difficult part has been getting student engagement, and everyone in SGA is so passionate, and SR is so passionate about getting these events out there and making them huge, and it's really important to get everyone excited about things, and that's been a little bit difficult. So that's something that I really want to focus on. But at the same time, just student engagement, I feel that's just it's just a key focus. It's pretty much what I'm going to try to do next semester, because in my first semester, I kind of said this to the Senate already, but in the first semester with the new week of events with Fall Bash, it kind of became hard to focus on that student engagement aspect, like town halls and direct student thank yous, the IOUs at the Daily Grind and everything. We weren't doing that the first semester because we were so overwhelmed by all the events. So that's the thing that I want to really push next year is those things, the student engagement aspect, to really get the students to know that the SGA is present and we're here and we're, here for you. So you should know that we're, know our events and everything.
As VPSR, name one program that you would put on that isn't presently being put out to the student body.
Question. Something that I would put on for the student body. There's an currently being put on. Okay. I think something that it isn't being put on by SGA or by just overall. Okay. I got this. I think a very important aspect that sometimes I feel could be addressed is simply the changes that happen around campus. I feel sometimes just putting a table in our student center or the campus center and saying, here are all the things that are changing. I had someone I barely knew from my math class come up to me and say, what are we going to do when Higgins Hall closes? That's something that we can address. That affects students. That's an entire building where classes are. Really getting that information and really putting ourselves out there and say, this is the information, this is what's going on, I think is a very important aspect, because sometimes it feels to a lot of students by the time that a change is happening, it's already too late for them to like kind of accommodate to that. And as VPSR, someone who's supposed to relay that information to organizations, students, faculty members, keeping that channel of communication flowing, that's super important. And something as simple as just sitting out at a table and saying, this is coming, this change is happening. I think something that was really important with the schedule changes, by the time it was already happening, most people it was too late. It was too late for people to show up at the forum. It was too late for people to really formulate an opinion and understand what was going on. And I think VPSR has a responsibility in that aspect, is to keeping the students informed, putting your face there and getting ready to listen to the voices and people's opinions on the change that's coming. That's something so small but yet so effective, that shows students and student leaders and organizations that we care, and we care enough to show you that this is what's happening and you should know. So yeah, that's something that I would definitely do.
You have been driven and passionate. I consider myself a little bit of a mentor to you to get things done. However, you can accomplish so many things as an individual. How are you going to change the impression that you work by yourself and not as a team player?
Once again, I think perceptions are formed based off of slightly a lack of knowledge. And I think that, once again, building the relations and actually talking to people and getting to know each other is where I would have that down. I think because I haven't really opened up to others, like you said, you are kind of like a mentor to me, but so I haven't really exposed myself to others, how some people can see me on this campus. And that's why I can relate to what Barbara said as far as letting those walls down. And sometimes it can be hard because you have these walls up debating your best interest and what wall is in your best interest. I do believe that if elected on the e-board, I'll have to let down those walls for trust purposes. And once again, just have those conversations, opening up myself and actually listening to those and receiving that feedback so that I can move on from there. And although that is a personality type of thing, I once again want to reiterate, it has never affected the student body. Always here for the students and driven for the students and doing for the students. To close, I just want to speak briefly, but just about my dedication. Throughout spring break, I was here working on my campaign. I made my campaign basically a platform to give to students. And if you give me a platform to serve as your VPSR, I will make sure that you are not only heard, but some of your concerns will be addressed and also fixed in some type of communication level that is fit for us both. In addition to that, I just want to see more consistency with our clubs. I want to see fairness in the clubs, and I want to see more in student government as well. So if I'm elected as VPSR, I will continue to use my platform to give to students and their needs.
Well, I want to start by thanking all of you for giving us the time to talk to you. It's been a phenomenal opportunity to be in front of you. That being said, for my closing remark is, if you vote for me, I promise you that I'm going to dedicate 110% to the position and dedicate a lot of my time to listening to you and working with you and faculty members and administration in order to enhance your experience here, because this is your college years, and I feel that it's super important that you join and then you have multiple ways to enjoy it and to grow. And I've been doing this for every single year, every semester, every day that I've been here. And I'm going to continue to do that, elected or not. If I win the position or I do not, you'll still see me. I'll still say hi. I'll still do everything I can to hear you out and do the best I can, to the best of my abilities to work with you and do what I can. I have a lot of experience, a lot of skills, a lot of leadership positions that qualify me for the position. And I think with this huge knowledge base and this huge enthusiasm and passion to really see WestCon do great, I think I can do an amazing job for you. So, thank you.
me as a person, I'm here to advocate for you all, like, WestCon students. That's why I'm here. From minority immigrant students to the female population on campus, every single voice should be heard. In my year as VPSR, no request has ever been too big or too small. When they said, hey, Barbara, we want a big shot artist on campus, what did we do? We got Tiesto, the second best paid DJ in the world. When they said, we want to-go containers in the cafeterias, boom, there's to-go containers. With me as VPSR, your voice will always be heard. Again, I'm passionate, motivated, and experienced. At this point, it's not why vote Viegas, it's why not.